Boy, do I get a lot to say about this one. Silent Service is a manga written by Kaji Kawaguchi. It ran from 1988 to 1996 in Weekly Morning and had been compiled into 32 volumes. And a 3-part OVA was produced by Sunrise. That was released between December 1995 and January 1998, and was brought to North America by US Manga Corp in 1998. Kind of. You see, the first 2 parts are compiled into a single movie, and the last part was never released in North America. And the edit of the first 2 parts runs about 100 minutes. And from what I can tell, they should run a total of 172 minutes between the 2 parts. And the missing 70 minutes are definitely going to cause some problems. And seeing as I only watched the 100-minute US release, my entire opinion will be based on what's contained on this CD. And maybe the uncut anime would answer some of the questions I have or solve some of the problems, but I kinda doubt they will. Silent Service is about the world's most advanced nuclear submarine named the Seabat, that was jointly developed by the US and Japan and to be crewed entirely by the Japanese, and is to be part of the US 7th Fleet. However, the crew of the Seabat have different plans, and go rogue, declaring themselves the independent nation of Yamato. This, understandably, causes a rift in Japanese-US relations. And although the show wants us to think Japan is the good guy and America is the bad guy, so to speak, I can't help but feel that America is mostly in the right. But more on that later. Shiro Kaneda was selected to captain the Seabat, and he commands the full respect of his crew. They make him seem like he's supposed to be the show's protagonist. However, he comes off as the villain, more due to his methods than his motives. Next up we have David Ryan, an American naval captain. He acts as the bridge between Shiro and the audience. Then we have Hiroshi Fukamachi, or as I like to call him, Captain Jawline. I mean, just look at his jaw. I doubt there's a more manly jaw in all of anime. Anyway, I digress. He's an old rival and friend of Kaeda's. He honestly gets less screen time than he deserves, which is a problem because he's definitely the most likable character, by way of being completely competent and super charismatic. And finally, well, maybe not finally, the rest of the characters are kinda unimportant, so I'm not going to talk about them here. So finally, we have President Nicholas Bennett and Prime Minister Toshi Takagami. The President of the United States of America and the Prime Minister of Japan, respectively. They mostly exist to exacerbate the problem by playing international politics. Poorly. And as for the other characters, they, well, mostly exist because you kinda need some characters to at least help progress the story. The animation is really good, especially during the naval battles, which is about the only reason to watch this. As for the mechanical design, it's, well, are all based on real ships and planes. And, well, they look like they're supposed to in real life. As for the character designs, they're also pretty good. It's your standard Sunrise fare. They have that realistic look to them, like you could believe people actually look like that, just animated. Also, that jaw. The dub's okay. It's far from the best. The actors match their characters well enough, but the performances range from good, bad, to over the top. Though by US Manga Corp standards, it's actually pretty good. The music is, well, it's music. It's not bad, it's just mostly forgettable. It's mostly generic tracks that blend into the background. Which, in all honesty, is better than being bad. It is well edited into the movie, playing when it needs to, helping it set the proper mood. So as I mentioned, I have a lot of problems with this movie. The movie ultimately tries to portray the USA as the bad guys and the crew of the Yamato and the Japanese as the good guys, though Japan themselves could be considered misguided. Now I'm going to be spoiling quite a few things here, so if you want to watch Silent Service unspoiled, be warned. So the Yamato,
Seabat,
was jointly developed by the US and Japan to be crewed entirely by Japanese and to join the US 7th Fleet.
but they go rogue and fire upon US subs,
Then later declares themselves an independent nation that may or may not have a nuke on board.
essentially declaring war on the US.
So naturally, the US pursues.
And Japan gets mad about this, despite the fact that the Yamato sinks about half the US fleet.
And when the US tells Japan not to interfere or risk it getting fired upon, Japan interferes.
Then they get angry when the US fires upon them, despite repeated warnings.
Well, the whole time Japan complains about the US violating the security treaty, all while Japan violates the security treaty by interfering in a war,
Which the US is fighting against essentially an independent nation, that both sides acknowledge as an independent nation, and fired upon the US first.
I'm also curious what the rest of the world is doing.
I mean, a rogue nuclear submarine with a potential nuke on it, you'd think that the UN or NATO or any other nation that exists would have something to say about this.
Now these are just personal annoyances, and I could go on and on for hours about them.
The real problem is the Yamato's plot armor,
It does not matter how many depth charges are dropped or torpedoes are fired.
and dozens upon dozens are dropped at a time,
None seem to ever hit the Yamato despite the odds.
which just makes things boring from a lack of tension.
You know the Yamato will be fine, and not because of strategy or enemy mistakes.
But because it's the Yamato.
I could really go on for hours about all the problems that plague this movie.
So do I recommend it? No, obviously not.
With its bad characters and plot holes, there's little to be enjoyed.
That being said, however, if you are looking for your fix of animated naval battles,
There are some really beautiful ones.
although it doesn't make up for all the bad things about it. So, that being said, until next time, have a good life.